Welcome to the weekly discussion on fair tax, exclusively on Blog Talk Radio, Fair Tax Time. Every Wednesday at 6 o'clock Pacific, join your host, former California State Director for Fair Tax. John has been an advocate for fair tax and tax reform for the last 40 years. Join us in the chat room at blogtalkradio.com/fairtaxforcalifornia. That's www.blogtalkradio.com/fairtax, the number 4, and the letter CA. Fair tax is not a flat tax. Think of the fair tax as a consumption tax, eliminating income taxes and actually abolishing the Internal Revenue Service. Please visit fairtax.org for a complete self-study guide to fair tax. And so without further ado, let me introduce you to our Fair Tax Time host, John Wesley Nobles.
Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you, Mr. Wayne. Our guest is on the line.
Oh, wonderful.
Hold on a minute here.
Okay.
Good evening. Do we have Brendan on the line?
Gary Johnson on the line.
Oh, Gary Johnson. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I went to call in and discovered that we did not have the phone number, and our whole organization has been scrambling for the last 30 minutes to get the phone number. So my apologies.
No, our apologies. What a welcome visit by you. Joe did not confirm when you might come on the show. Welcome. We're so pleased to have you with us tonight. Matter of fact, we were fortunate enough, Gary, at the beginning of the week to meet with your running mate, Judge Jim Gray.
Oh, terrific.
What a marvelous running mate. What a great team you both make.
Well, I think so. I think he's really solid. The whole Superior Court judge tenure, and then federal prosecutor, and a former candidate for the U.S. Senate in California on the Libertarian ticket. So I think he's just pretty darn solid.
Oh, he is, and I'll tell you, he gave us a very, very informative speech. We were down helping a friend who is running for sheriff in San Bernardino County, and he came down and addressed the group, and what a pleasant surprise that was.
Terrific.
We kind of got started. We didn't expect you to be our guest tonight, but we are just ecstatic, and I'm going to let you go. I know your time is very valuable, and a lot of the folks that are on the line tonight weren't fortunate enough to be in Las Vegas, and I tried to share the Libertarian Convention with them as much as possible, and maybe you can tell us what's transpired since then.
Well, what's transpired is that there's a real focus right now on the fact that there is a third choice, that Romney and Obama both want to bomb Iran. Well, there's another choice. Romney and Obama have no intention of balancing the budget. I do. I think there's a third choice. I think we've got to reform entitlements. There's a third choice. I am advocating throwing out the entire federal tax system and replacing it with the fair tax. I think that's a third choice as opposed to status quo. Ending the wars, getting out of Afghanistan, bringing the troops home. Romney, Obama, it's not going to happen. End the drug wars. It's not going to happen. Romney, Obama. Marriage equality, I know that President Obama said some very favorable things about marriage equality, but essentially nothing's going to change because he's going to leave it to the states. I don't think either one of them, Romney or Obama, want to repeal the Patriot Act. I do. So there really is a third choice, and it would, I'm going to argue, really make a difference in this country.
Well, we're very pleased with your platform, I have to tell you that. We were talking a little earlier, I don't know if you were listening in, a lot of the fair tax folks, we've decided that we're going to make our presence known in Chattanooga, Tennessee for the Riverbend Music Festival, June the 8th through the 16th there, and I understand there are going to be about around 700,000 people gathering. If you happen to be in the neighborhood, maybe you can drop on by.
All right, I'll put that down. That'll be a great opportunity to talk to people at that event. And I want to take my hat off to to everyone involved with the fair tax the fact that so many of the events that I'm attending, there is a booth, and I just think it's terrific. I just take my hat off to everybody that has volunteered to do that, and it's been very informative, and I've heard nothing but positive feedback.
Well, Governor Johnson, I can tell you, I had never been to a Libertarian convention before in my life, and I was just absolutely thrilled to go there, and especially to meet you. I know your time is limited. I wonder if you might take some questions from a few people that are on the line with us.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, great. Let's start out with I think Bill Payne over in Chattanooga. Bill, did you have a question for the governor?
Well, actually, I probably could have thought of one if I had known you were coming. I'd have baked the doggone cake. I wanted to say that I watched a lot of the convention last weekend on C-SPAN, and I just was thrilled as you were to see your nomination come through. We kind of expected it in a way, but nevertheless, it's always nice to just nail it down. And I think that there are a lot of issues that people in the Democrat and Republican parties may come to a disagreement with Libertarians on. But if anybody takes the time, I think, to actually read about and learn about some of your positions, that when you take the important stuff and you throw away the smaller issues, what you have is a platform of high in substance, and I want to commend you for that. I'm a huge fan and have been since you were governor of New Mexico. So, and I don't have a question, but that's what I have to say.
Well, you've made my evening, Bill. Maybe we should just stop right now. Thank you very much. That was terrific.
Governor, we also have somebody from Texas here that would like to say hello, a former Californian. Rob Williams, do I have you on the line?
You got me right here, John.
Well, you want to say hello to the governor.
Hello, Governor. Great to have you on the show. As everybody else said, unexpected. I wasn't totally prepared for questions here, but one aspect of the fair tax, which I'm sure you're well aware of, is that a lot of people out there right now are still grossly uneducated in regards to the fair tax. Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich had written in one of his books that if he was ever to, and I'm paraphrasing here, I don't remember the exact quote, but if he was ever to bring the fair tax on as a presidential candidate or in whatever capacity, he would have people in every state designated to help educate those around him and under him and in the just around the nation in general. I was just kind of wondering if you had anything in mind in that regards to helping educate people more about the fair tax once you're in a position to do so.
Well, John and Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that there are about 2 million advocates of the fair tax. And so I think it's hard, really hard, to have a get-together of any size whatsoever and not have someone there that is versed in the fair tax. And to me, that really gets it down the road. It gets the discussion started, and it keeps it going with so many that are informed about it and can actually speak to it.
Yeah, I understand that. There are a lot of us out there. It's just I see a lot of education, but not a lot of authoritative education on the fair tax, and I think that is something that, as a president, I think you may may be able to provide is that authoritative education that people need to actually accept and embrace the fair tax.
Well, and that's the opportunity that I have, and I sure hope to make the most out of that. I talk about it all the time. The biggest issue that country faces is our spending. So I'm advocating a balanced budget now. I'm promising to veto any expenditures that exceed revenue if I'm president of the United States. And I think when it comes to rebooting the American economy, when it comes to jobs, clearly the fair tax addresses just that. And not to mention the weeks that all of us spend every year having to deal with the IRS. And I don't want to put weeks as a light spot, because for many it's longer than that. But I'm really excited by the proposal, and I hope to be a spokesperson that advances the issue significantly.
Well, Governor, we know you will. I happen to have another caller on the line, Governor. Stop us when you're short of time. He is also a former Californian, and he's a CPA and a former IRS agent from Pennsylvania. Chuck Osofsky, do we have you on the line? Chuck, do we have you on the line? Well, I guess not. We'll take another call from California.
Hey, how's everybody tonight?
Okay, we did have you there, Chuck. Okay, great.
Yeah, you do.
Unfortunately,
John mentioned almost my voice is very bad tonight, but I want to congratulate Brendan for taking a stand and being out there in public.
Well, it's not Brendan. It's Governor Gary Johnson joined us this evening.
I apologize. My mistake. Governor Johnson, my mistake. I hit the wrong link. Governor Johnson, it's a real pleasure. On several different levels, I just admire your stand on personal liberties. Just a real honor to speak to you, sir.
Well, very kind of you to say. And
you're
talking about the.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I've been talking about the fair tax, and I'm a big proponent, and not so much for the economic aspects, Governor, but for the personal liberty aspects, where people can spend their money and not worry about tax consequences.
Right. And the notion that, in a zero corporate tax rate environment, if the private sector doesn't create tens of millions of jobs, I don't know what will. And then back to personal freedom, no withholdings from your payroll check, and no more employer match, those funds coming out of the fair tax. A lot of good stuff.
Absolutely correct. I apologize. I have to get off the line, but everybody have a great evening, and thank you for speaking. Take care.
All right, Chuck. Thank you.
Governor, we have a lady from California who is a district director. She taught school here for 40-some years. And, matter of fact, we were talking about your candidacy and meeting with Judge Gray the other night. And, that any vote here for a Democrat, of course, is kind of wasted. And that's what the good judge told us. And with that, Nancy Kesey, can you come on the line, please, and say hello to the governor? Let's connect her again. Nancy, are you there, please?
Yes, I'm there.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Hi,
yes.
Governor Johnson. I really, this is amazing to me. I want you to know I have just, in the last 5 minutes, been able to get over my giddiness that I haven't had since Elvis Presley first came on the scene, and I remember seeing him. So I want you to know that you really rank up there. I'm in awe. But I'm gonna throw you a question that I'm sure that you will pause and give it a thought, because you may already have. Just today on Fox, they were in Colorado, and one of their reporters had a feature on the escalation of rent because of course, our housing and our unemployment and all of these kinds of things. So they were talking about how there was only a 2% vacancy in Denver. And, it was pretty alarming. Now, I notice I just said that's alarming. Obviously, to the people who own the homes that are being rented to others, they're in a good position because, and they are talking about their rents going up. In fact, one lady, it was put to her that she and her husband, who'd been living in this particular apartment, I believe it was her home, had gone up 14%, but they were able to negotiate it down. Now, here comes my question. I am concerned under fair tax, and I have expressed this before in many different venues, that to consider the renter utilizing a service from the landlord when they rent a house or an apartment, etc., that they then will need to pay the fair tax. And one of the comments that was made today was there are many, many people out there that have to rent because they are not able to purchase for one reason or another. Perhaps we know that the banks are hanging on to monies and they're just, kind of in a bit of chaos. And some people just simply can't qualify for whatever the reasons are. I'm concerned that, for instance, if someone is renting an apartment for $1,000, well, under fair tax, they would need to pay $1,300. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
$1,230. Excuse me, I'm so used to. Right. Yes, $1,230. So all of this mobility that is lacking, and what we just heard today, I mean, fair tax has nothing to do with it, but it is a situation with renters who cannot afford to purchase, where there would be no fair tax if it's an existing home for those who purchase. So I'm wondering, I'm going to stop the question because I know you know where I'm going with this. I want to know what your reaction is under fair tax as written, H.R. 25, what you feel about whether there should still be the tax paid on for renters.
Well, Nancy, you bring up a great point, and part of the reason for my coming on Fair Tax Radio tonight was really to have these kinds of discussions, so it's very valuable to me. Now, I know that you're aware of the notion that implementing the fair tax, you're taking away all the hidden tax, all the tax that doesn't show up, and replacing it with a very transparent 23% fair tax consumption tax. My question would be to John, and John maybe can answer this, is applying using Nancy's example of $1,000 rent with a $230 fair tax applied, how much is it reasonable to assume that the rent comes down because you're taking taxes out of the person that rents equation? Do you have a sense of that, John?
We have. I'm glad you brought that question up. We have bandied that about quite a bit, and there are a number of variables there. One, whether or not an individual, say I'm a landlord, whether or not an individual is renting a complex and what his overhead might be. For example, if I rented 100 or 200 units, I'd have staff, I'd have payroll to take care of, so forth. Compare that with the landlord that maybe has a few units or perhaps a house, where they do everything on their own. That's an area where we really haven't been able to get our finger on it because of the variables. The other thing is a new property is going to require a whole lot less maintenance than a property, say, that's 25 or 30 years old. So I don't know. Perhaps somebody that's on the line, maybe Rob Williams or Bill Payne might have a comment on that. Rob or Bill, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well,
I don't know a whole lot about that segment. Maybe Bill would have better information.
Well, we've talked about
Nancy,
this a number of times.
I will just say, Nancy, that I have heard that before, and I really don't have the answer other than there has to be a reduction from the renter's standpoint in taxes paid that should be reflected in the rent. I don't know, though, if there's a good number on what that reduction would actually be.
As far as embedded
Exactly.
Yeah, I think you're going to find out as John, if you and your staff, et cetera, think about this, I think you'll see that John's right on the money. It's very, very hard to know what that figure might be. It's not actually a production, like you're creating a product to sell, or you have a very specific service that you're performing, such as a plumber. Now, we know that if all these items that they have to bring to replace, to repair, et cetera, plus the expenses of the people who come and do it, we realize that those kinds of services are much more manageable under the fair tax. But when it comes to rent, there really is such a wide variety. My concern is that we are setting up a class of renters and landlords, or people who can purchase their own home. I really see a giant divide there, because we're penalizing people who cannot just decide to own. Now, if we were free to go, well, I'd rather rent, because there's some people who just don't want to have to keep up everything, and maybe they travel a lot. And then you have the person that they really need it for a domicile, et cetera. And you might say, well, gee, they should buy under those circumstances. Well, that's fine, provided they have the money to do so and the way to, get
Nancy,
loans or whatever.
Yeah, I think your question and the discussion is just right on. I just don't have the answer.
Sure.
And
sure.
And I'll think about it a little more too.
Great, I
appreciate
that.
That perhaps, Governor, if you were president, of course, I think you could possibly influence modifications to the bill, and I think possibly a modification bill might include a moratorium for a period of time on that the fair tax on rents, so that it basically will allow people to ease into that. It also will allow the market to reach an equilibrium, because it's going to be a little off kilter for a while. New goods are going to suffer a little bit for a short while. The value of it is not going to go up. The value of used goods certainly will, because there's no tax on it. And until the market reaches that equilibrium like it is now, then there's going to be a disadvantage to that, and because the prices on things will go up on used goods, and that would include certainly a home that you were going to rent. And so I'm thinking that possibly at least a moratorium, or possibly easing into the 23% by going in stages up, in smaller increments up to it. It's just an idea, and I thought I would throw that at you so that you could put that in your file for later use.
Very good. All right. I'm going to
I had a
be thinking
thought
about
on the rental thing, if you don't mind. one of the thoughts that I had, and it wasn't really relative to the tenant paying the tax, which of course would be 30% exclusive to come down to the 23% inclusive. My other concern on that was that there are so many rental properties in the market. I estimate, I thought I heard somewhere between 40 and 50 million rentals in the United States, with a median rental value of about $1,130 or somewhere in that neighborhood. But my after thinking it through a bit, one of my concerns was this, because with fair tax, we want to eliminate the compliance issues as much as possible, and because the point of sale is going to be a whole lot different than on retail sales, are we going to create a situation here insofar as having compliance that we have to have too large of a government force to oversee this? And that was another thing that kind of crept into my mind.
Yeah, this would seem to be an area that would be rife with could be the number one black market undertaking, if you will, by those seeking to avoid paying the fair tax.
Well, I totally agree, but I've said this before on the show many times, Governor, that for the most part, HR 25S13 is a pretty darn good bill. I haven't seen anything as good. I haven't heard anything on the table insofar as taxation goes that holds a candle to the fair tax. I would imagine, and you as a former governor and your experience in government would probably expect that there's going to be some serious debate, even though we have done all the work that we have. And I would say if we walk away from the table with 85 or 90% of what we have in the bill right now, we're light years ahead.
No, I would agree. And my experience as governor of New Mexico has a gross receipts tax on goods and services, and really does not apply to so as a builder, there would be tax-exempt certificates issued for everyone, for the plumber, for the carpenter, for materials used in the house, but the tax would apply at the point of sale. So I just want to say that New Mexico's tax system was easy. It's easy to collect. There's not a burden as a consumer. There's not really a burden as a seller. And so when it comes to the fair tax, this would be what the country or the federal government would look forward to, is the ease of being able to implement this as opposed to the IRS.
Very good, Governor. I have another caller on the line. I don't think we've gotten to this call. I have a caller in the 507 area code. Could you tell us who you are and where you're calling from, please?
Yes, my name is Eric, and I'm from Randolph, Minnesota. I want to pose a question to you guys, including Mr. Johnson. Why should the individual citizen be paying a federal government tax when the individual citizen does not have a contract with the federal government? You know, my land is not protected by the federal government. My state is. Why would we want to give the federal government the power to tax individual citizens if we're taking away the right to the income tax? Why not just have the states pay for the federal government that they have?
Eric, I think that's the direction. I think that's the goal. I think that the clearer that we make the tax system, the clearer the pathway becomes to accomplish what it is that you're talking about. I'm just in total agreement with what you're talking about. It's the reality that the government is spending $1.4 trillion more than what they're taking in, and the necessity to slash that spending, and then once that's under control, actually the notion of scaling back taxes in line with exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, in a way, except for it's not exactly addressing the problem. I mean, obviously the problem is the spending, but the problem is the way that our federal government has a way to extract the money from the people without their consent. So we have to change the entire system. I mean, even if we don't cut the funding or the spending, the first thing we need to do is stop them from being able to take it from people and make it voluntary for people to give it. Does that kind of make sense? And that's the only way to stop it.
You don't see the fair tax as something voluntary, and I also cite the example that there are essentials that we have to buy, but the fair tax addresses that with the prebate check, and so isn't the fair tax a discretionary tax to a degree?
It is to a degree, but not in completely, because the way society works, we're forced to purchase things, and there's no way of getting around that tax. I'm a true libertarian. I'm a tax avoider, whatever you want to call it. I do everything I can to not pay for this government, and I have a feeling that if we implemented a fair tax, it would be physically impossible for me to even protest my taxes. And there'd be no way for the general public to be able to hold back the government by withholding funds.
Well,
that's one of my concerns.
Other than to purchase used, I don't know. I don't know as the fair tax doesn't get us, and I'm not hearing a disagreement, but I just think all things considered, the fair tax is a big improvement over what we currently have.
If I might jump in here, Eric and Governor, I look at the fair tax as an opportunity for me to make a decision on what I'm going to pay in tax. In other words, I might decide that it's not in my budget to buy a new car, so I buy a used car, and since it's not going to be taxable under fair tax, I'm not paying tax for that item. And by the same token, anything that I purchase other than the essentials, which, as you say, Governor, are covered under the prebate, I really, in effect, have a chance to vote every time I make a purchase.
Yeah, I'm in agreement, and I always cite the gasoline tax as probably the best libertarian tax that I can think of. You buy gas, and the tax that you pay on that gas is supposed to go 100% to building highways. So, to me, that's a terrific user tax that, of course, if you don't want to use the roads, well, you're not going to buy any gas.
Well, anyhow, thank you for the question, Eric. Governor, if you have time for another question, I have somebody here from California who, by the way, got to meet Governor Jim Gray the other day in Rancho Cucamonga, and I know that she has something to say on taxes, and that would be none other than my sister, Charlene Nobles-Kirkus in Spring Valley Lake. Charlene, are you there?
Very good.
Charlene, do I have you on the line?
No.
Do you want to? You met the other evening. You met Judge Gray, and you heard his speech on the Libertarian ticket with Governor Johnson and Judge Gray, which I think is an outstanding ticket. What did you walk away from that meeting with that was new to you in terms of where we're going with the government and taxes?
Well, it was the first time I'd heard of the governor, and when I walked away, I thought it would be the right thing to do to vote for him, number one, when the time comes. And fair tax, of course, is always a good thing. I don't know. I just felt comfortable with the way he discussed how things should work and are not working. And that's really all I got out of it. and I don't like to talk radio, and you know it.
Okay, well, thank you, Charlene.
All right, thank you, and nice to meet you, Governor.
Yeah, Charlene, thank you.
No,
and I'll just echo that when it comes to Judge Gray. Just somebody who's very, very solid on all the issues, and that would be solid from a libertarian perspective, which, in my opinion, is solid with everybody. But of course, I'm putting that to the test here.
Well, Governor, I'll tell you, I walked away with something, and I've been thinking about it ever since I listened to Judge Gray down in Rancho Cucamonga, and I think he makes a very valid point. Here in California, if we are to vote for Mitt Romney, our vote's going to be canceled out in California. There's no question about that. And excuse me. So, since we're going to, pardon me for a minute, really, in effect, waste our vote, we ought to vote Libertarian. Nancy, if you could come on the line for me until I get a drink of water, please.
Yes, I will, John, if I'm on. Can you hear me, folks?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, fine. I just wanted to make sure. With John will be back in a moment. I did also want to ask you, and this kind of fits, I believe, Governor. I watched you during the debates, in those that you were able to participate in. You were running not as a libertarian, of course, but as part of the Republican Party, which is the notorious two parties in the United States. So I just wondered if you could share with us a little your frustrations with the procedure of debates this year, and how, I know you are really looking forward to getting a sufficient amount of the votes so that you can appear with the two candidates at this time, Mitt Romney and President Obama, but you would be able to be there also. Can you just kind of share some of that element of frustration? Because I'm sure it was throughout everything until you became the Libertarian candidate.
Yeah, so what happened to me was, and really CNN's the culprit. CNN excluded me from their first debate, saying that I wasn't at 2% in A, B, and C polls. Well, my name wasn't in A, B, C polls. So how do you get into the debate? How do you score 2% if you're not even a name that can be voted on? Yes. And then about 8 months ago, CNN included me in their first biweekly poll that they did. And in that poll, I was at 2%, which tied me with Kane, put me ahead of Santorum, and put me ahead of Huntsman. And CNN had a debate that was coming up in a couple of weeks. So we're thinking, well, that's the end of this, meaning I'm going to be in the debate, and this won't be an issue going forward. Well, CNN drops my name from their biweekly poll after appearing one time, and my name never reappeared. Now, that's manipulating the process in a way that goes completely unnoticed by everybody.
Certainly.
Now, looking at the pie in the sky scenario to get elected president of the United States, that's going to have to be polling at 15% to be on the debate stage with Obama and Romney. Now, right now, PPP is including me in their polls, in every poll that they do as the Libertarian candidate for president, and I'm polling at about 8% against Obama and Romney. I think it's very possible that when people come to recognize that there are going to only be 3 candidates on the ballot in all 50 states, I think when you consider that 80% of Americans right now are saying they would consider voting for a third-party candidate, I think there's real opportunity here to actually poll at 15%. And if that happens, Nancy, I think anything is possible. So that's the pie in the sky scenario. And unlike CNN's poll, their biweekly poll, unlike 2% or 1% in these polls, it's going to be really hard to sweep 8 or 10 or 15% under the rug and say it doesn't exist. So as long as PPP, which is a reputable polling organization, public policy polling, as long as they continue to include my name, I'm going to be in good shape because other polling organizations, as reputable, are going to have to include my name also.
I see.
Thank you for that, Nancy. I'm going to interrupt here. I have my voice back again. We have another caller, Governor, if you can take another call here.
Great.
From a caller on the 478 area code. Caller, could we get your name and where you're calling from, please?
Yes, this is Greg from Georgia.
Greg, how are you? Good evening.
I'm good. Good talking to you there, Governor. And my thing's not really a question for you. It's more an answer to Eric there. I mean, he claims to be a libertarian there and asking about avoiding the fair tax. Well, I mean, the fair tax is set up as the ultimate libertarian tax. I mean, it's a tax that you choose. I mean, there's very little stuff that you actually are required to buy. The laws don't require you to buy anything. I mean, if you want to eat, you're free to grow your own food. If you wish to purchase the services of a farmer, then, I mean, you pay the fair tax on that. But it's, as far as tax avoidance, I mean, you can make as much as you want with the fair tax and not pay a penny in tax. And that's exactly what he's looking for.
Well, I think it's got a lot of the components that libertarians are looking for, and that is the notion of fees, tariffs, if you will, on goods and services that directly apply to the goods and services that you are using.
Yeah, I mean, like the libertarians, which I used to consider myself a libertarian, but it seems like they've been taken over by what I consider wackos. I mean, people that don't really, that I can't agree with anyway. But I mean, the fair tax is the ultimate user service fee. I mean, they claim they want to tax users for people that use parks and stuff. Well, I mean, that's what a fair tax is. It's a user service fee. If I use the service of somebody else, whether it be buying their products or actually using their service, then I pay a tax. If I choose to do it myself, I don't pay a tax. I can still make as much as I want. So, I mean, for Eric, that's the ultimate thing. As far as the states paying the government, I mean, whenever you got bills to pay, you've got to have a source of income. The Founding Fathers tried having states paying it, and there's no good way to tax people. I mean, Alaska's not got the same amount of people, but it don't have the same resources as, say, Florida. They're just, I mean, it's been tried. It's not a good way to do it. The fair tax is a good way to do it because if you use somebody's services or if you buy somebody's products, then you pay. If you don't want to pay, throw you out some seeds in the ground, grow your own food. I mean, that's the ultimate way to go.
No, very good. No, great point. Great point.
Very good.
I wish you luck there. You'll be getting my vote. I don't know about these polls. Nobody's called me and polled me, but you'll be getting my vote.
Thank you very much for calling.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Governor, I had a question on the fair tax. We had, as you may know, Congressman Rob Woodall and Congressman Brian Bilbray and a lot of folks during the past year since we got this show started a little over a year ago. And the sense from the folks that we know in Washington, the people that are fair tax co-sponsors, fair tax advocates such as yourself, are that this bill cannot possibly become law without a tsunami of public support. And I might ask you just to address that for a minute, if you would, and share your thoughts on that.
Well, I'm in complete agreement, John, and I pointed out my pie-in-the-sky scenario for winning this race, being on the debate stage, being able to talk about the fair tax, directing people to the fairtax.org site, and the potential here to change the world a little bit, and the fair tax being one of those components. So I just see a terrific opportunity here as one of the three candidates that'll be on the ballot in all 50 states to actually, move the issue to greater recognition.
Well, we think this is terrific. Of course, I put you, and I said this when I had the pleasure of meeting you in Las Vegas, I put you right up there with Governor Mike Huckabee, and believe me, that's quite a place to be. That means you have my utmost respect. I know that you have respect of most of the folks in fair tax, and we're running short of time. I want to thank you so very much for joining us tonight. What a marvelous surprise. I hope that we might hear from you again, and who knows, maybe we'll see you in Riverbend Music Festival down in Chattanooga. We're going to have a few friends there,
All
about
right.
700,000 of us. So thank you so much, Governor. We really appreciate your call and spending the time with us tonight, and what a marvelous surprise.
Well,
thank you so much.
I'm sorry I got on late, and I'm going to hold you to the promise to come back. It was fun. Thank you very much.
By all means, and let Joe and I communicate that we're going to have you on a certain date. That would be great.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
All right.
sir. Well, marvelous. What a marvelous and great surprise that was to have the governor on. We're down to the last few minutes. I'm going to open all the lines. If anybody has anything they want to say, please do so at the risk of talking over each other. And
John?
we'll do this again. Go ahead.
John, it's Nancy. I was going to say perhaps we should get right on advertising the podcast from tonight.
We will.
Because we were able to have him on, and I would hope that his committee would do the same thing.
Thank you all very much for calling. We're down to the last minute. Thank you so much.
The fair tax is unlikely to affect the amount of illegal immigration or legal immigration, in fact, that goes on today. What it will do is it will capture taxes from illegal immigrants that today may not file income tax forms and pay the federal income tax. In addition, you have to be a legal U.S. resident to be able to get the prebate. So if you want to be exempt from taxes on your essential goods and services, you're going to have to be a legal resident. So if I was an illegal resident in the United States under the fair tax, I would not only have to pay tax, but if I wanted the benefit of the prebate, I would actually have to become a citizen to get that. So I think it's going to have a very good effect on our system vis-a-vis illegal immigrants.